Good morning and happy Wednesday, folks. William Tramp, also known as This Effin' GM here, ready to talk to you about Encounter Party. Episode 13 aired last night, and it was a pretty good one. I have a couple of things I'd like to say about it, but before we get to what I'd like to say about it, I should mention that what I would like to say is filled with spoilers. If you're not interested in spoilers in this recap of the episode from last night, then what you should do is you should head over here and watch that video. It's awesome. It's me rambling on about Planescape, because I love talking about Planescape. If you're not interested in rambling about Planescape and you are okay with spoilers, then let's keep hanging out. All right, well, let's go ahead with that aside. Let's go ahead and get started with today's recap. Hit it, Tommy! You know what? No, I don't have time for Tommy's shenanigans today. What I do have time for is to make a clarification to something that I had stated last recap. I had talked about the Sword of Sacrifice, and I had stated that the Sword of Sacrifice allows the wielder to take all of the foe's hit points into themselves, killing the foe instantly. I was wrong. That wouldn't be a very cursed item at all, would it? That would be awesome. No, what the item does, what the Sword of Sacrifice does, is it allows the wielder to touch a foe and transfer their own hit points, all of them, to the foe. Now, in most cases, this would not be great. That would kill whoever's wielding the sword. That's not what we want to have happen. That would be cursed. But in the case of Ven's father, where he was facing a undead creature, the influx of positive energy is what killed the beholder. Okay, I've been losing sleep over this for the past week. Now you know. I've done my part. Let's get started. Episode 13, Lovers in Linen, begins with the party having just offered to a group of performers that they would be happy to fill the roles, literally, of the actors missing from the play Lovers in Linen. So we get Ven, Asher, and Tolo, who begin to memorize lines, while the rest are planning, when they put on this play, to hide somewhere in the theater to see if maybe they can draw the future out. Because remember, they're putting on this play because Asher's sister had done something to the stage to show her devotion to the future. And they are hoping that by putting on this play again, it would draw the future out of hiding. All right, so we begin a montage of getting ready for lines. Can we just take a moment real quick to appreciate the fact that we are about to watch actors playing Dungeons and Dragons characters, playing actors in a fake play set in the Dungeons and Dragons world? Can we also appreciate that Brian seemed to have scripts ready for Ven, Asher, and Tolo? Whole scripts of Lovers in Linen. Okay, there are handouts, and then there are handouts, and this is a above and beyond. Okay, so the roles are handed out. Tolo is going to be playing a guard, Asher is going to be playing the lover in linen, and Ven is going to be playing the Velveteen Mask! Yes. So we get through the montage, they get to the theater, and they begin to put on this absolutely wretched play. It is delightfully horrible. I'm almost wondering if Brian was sitting there thinking of a play that he did at some point in high school and like, yeah, I'm definitely going to be channeling this one for this. It was delightful. Watching the players deliver these lines in character it was just frankly delightful. And if you haven't seen the episode, I would definitely go and catch it, purely for nothing else than to just watch the play within the play. I think it's hilarious. As those three are putting on the play for the masses, Flick, Olivina, and Dridian are keeping an eye on the audience. They notice that the writer of the book, Lovers in Linen, is hanging out there with his agent, and I believe they notice a couple of other people just kind of hanging out in the audience. Now, as the play continues on, they do note that every so often, something drops from the ceiling. There is somebody trying to sabotage the play, it seems, by attacking the actors with sandbags and such. So Flick, Olivina, and Dridian decide to head up to the rafters. I don't know what we call them in a play. Decide to head up to the rafters to see who is doing such a thing. The catwalk? I don't know. Anyway, the point is, they get up there and they find the saboteur of the play, who is the Velveteen Mask! mask! Okay, I'm not doing that anymore. But they see the Velveteen Mask cutting off pieces, basically cutting ropes and dropping sandbags on the ground. And they also see that the Velveteen Mask has brought a friend. It's an octopus. So the group decides to go and stop the Velveteen Mask, but the octopus, who is hanging out of this catwalk, starts to grab at them. Now, it's not just a normal octopus. We're talking like a fantasy octopus. Big, giant octopus hanging out up there, ready to stop anybody who will try to stop the play from being stopped. Okay, so this turns into a strange sort of battle where the group is it's very clear that the group is trying not to harm this giant octopus. I think they instead decide to befriend the giant octopus using various magics to be able to talk to it and kind of convince this giant octopus, hey, my dude, we just want to keep people safe. You're not a bad guy. You're a good boy. That's kind of the general gist. I believe the octopus had a name, but I didn't write it down. Meanwhile, while this is all happening, Lovers in London is still going on, and there's this really awkward scene where Asher and Vin have to kiss up on stage, and it is the most hilarious stage kiss I've ever seen attempted. It is like a step below the kind of kiss that you give that weird aunt who always shows up to give way too many hugs at Christmas time. As the play is continuing, the fight's happening upstairs, they eventually manage to convince the octopus to back off, and they go to confront the Velveteen Mask. Well, during a quick battle ensues, and during this, Dridian seems to make a nemesis as he's really trying hard to take down the Velveteen Mask. It's pretty funny. They're mainly, not with deadly force, they're just trying to get him to stop. Well, as this battle is ensuing, the stage lights up. And remember that there was this really cool terrain piece I had mentioned where Brian actually brought in an actual stage. And so we're watching the miniatures have the battle above the stage where the other characters are. And when the stage lights up at the appropriate time, we see the entire backdrop has been changed when the light hits it to a symbol of the future. Which, of course, causes the audience to have a bit of a meltdown, I guess. The Velveteen Mask uses this opportunity to stage a daring escape, with him and Dridian basically doing the "I'll get you, not this time, hero" sort of situation. The Velveteen Mask does escape, and the play ends. And as the group is leaving the theater, they are confronted by members of law enforcement, the Flaming Fist, and they are escorted home. See, because it turns out that this play wasn't supposed to go on. I don't know if you remember this, but when they were speaking with Patriarch Mallory Temperance, they had stated, hey, we can make the play safe. They kind of forgot to ensure that and instead just went and put the play on. So the police were there to stop the play. The show must not go on, they demand. And they are escorted home. Olivina instead heads to the Almori residence where the Medegai live and discovers some crushing news. Medegus Almori is dying. And that's basically it. It's not it's the episode was the normal length, but a lot of it was taken up by combat and the play, and I did not really feel like it would be useful for me to go round by round through combat and go round by round through the play. But it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend taking a look because there's a lot of stuff happening. I always enjoy when there is some sort of combat, but there's another element happening at the same time. The group is divided and they're both doing something that's of interest, and we're kind of, flitting back and forth between the two. Either way, okay, great episode. Let's talk about what I liked about this episode. Let's talk about what I didn't like so much about this episode. And then let's talk about what questions I have as a result of this. Okay, what did I like about this episode? First, of course, watching the actors try to act as people, as characters acting. Sorry, it gets a little confusing to me, but to try to say it out loud. But watching the actors play characters who are acting, that was pretty fun. When I used to be an improv comedian, we would have situations like this a lot. And I noticed that whenever this sort of thing happens, actors playing characters playing actors, it tends to almost be a way for people involved in theater to kind of poke fun at their own industry, and I always find that amusing. I don't know why. It just kind of, it feels meta without being meta. I don't know, but it was fun, and I liked watching it. Speaking of the play, what I really liked about this episode was that stage setup. Again, I'm a train guy, so seeing that whole stage setup and it's interactive with the light and watching the battle along the catwalk on the top, that was cool. It was very cool. And the handouts, Brian, the handouts of having that whole play, I don't know. There's a point in which in the episode where Brian asks for a pause, and then there's a pause and he comes back, the show comes back and he's handing out scripts. And so I'm super curious on this. Did he go off to print off these scripts? Or did he go off to write the play as fast as humanly possible? I have no idea, but it was really entertaining to think about. So when it comes to handouts and props and the train setup, this episode was fantastic. I know it's not as striking as the corpse dungeon was, but it's still very cool. And of course, I loved the octopus. When you have summoned creatures pop up in battles, often I find that people will try to pick a creature that seems thematically appropriate for what's happening at the time. Even though with a summoned creature, and summoned creatures, by the way, are where you use your magic to bring a type of creature, from existence to poof, right here, fight for me, friend. It's like Pokemon. Often people will try to create battles where the summoned creature makes like thematic sense. And in this particular case, I don't know why an octopus was chosen to fight in a catwalk, other than the fact that it was grabby, but what a decision. The idea of a giant octopus fighting in a catwalk above a play that is continuing is just so silly, but the best kind of silly. This is Dungeons and Dragons, my friends. Okay, what didn't I like so much about the episode? I got one bone to pick, and that's about the revelation of the symbol of the future. The thing is that I kind of expected a little more. We already knew the future was involved. We've already got the evidence for that. So I was kind of hoping that when the great reveal happened, that we would get a little bit more from that, more information. And kind of what I feel like all we got was just, the future's involved, but we already knew that. So I was hoping for a little bit more from that, and maybe I just missed something. Maybe I was watching the episode and I didn't catch something, but I kind of had hoped that there'd be, a little bit more advancement of that story, because what that does is it kind of makes it feel like maybe this whole episode was really just a fun episode rather than a pushing the story forward. And there's nothing wrong with having a fun episode every now and then, and I've thought most of the episodes are fun thus far, but I just wanted to see more from that particular aspect, especially coming off the last episode where there's a lot of information given. Maybe we just had to take a step back. I don't know. Personal opinion. Okay, what are my interests in this episode? Number one, what happened to the octopus? Did they just leave him up in that catwalk? What happened? Did he just, was he summoned and just poof, disapparated and nobody knows? It's like, I felt like we got a good amount of character development for the cephalopod, and then we don't get to know what happened. I'm hoping that this entire show ends with, maybe the giant octopus crawling off into the sunset to live a better life. I don't know. I want to know what happened to that octopus. I also wish I remember the name of that octopus. I know that one of you, Ned, is probably going to tell me the name of that octopus the second that this video goes up, so I wish I should probably ask him now, so I had that in this episode, but I'm not going to be recording anything because I'm just lazy. I'm a lazy person. Okay, another interest. Medigus Almori is dying. Okay, that is a revelation. That is something to end the episode on. Now, I'm very curious as if this sickness that Medigus Almori has kind of ties into the greater storyline, or is this a bid for an Emmy? I have no idea, but it's I'm very curious to see where that will lead. I do think that it very very much hits that theme or that trope, I guess, of somebody looking for a cure because they're the one who has the disease, right? Maybe this is really just a way to explain how Medigus Almori got involved in this whole situation of trying to find non-magical cures in the first place. I don't know. Okay, my last thing that I'm interested in, this is part interest, part theory, the Velveteen Mask. Okay, first of all, the Velveteen Mask was delightful this time around. It really made sense of how it all coalesced together, in the sense of that the reveal of the Velveteen Mask being the one sabotaging the play. It felt right. So I'm going to soften my stance on the Velveteen Mask. Plus, watching David playing Vin try to play the Velveteen Mask was actually very funny. I found that very enjoyable. But the Velveteen Mask, I think it's Mr. Bland, right? Mr. Bland is the writer of The Lovers in Linen, and you have this very mild-mannered writer here, and then you have this very bombastic hero, and I know that the core of the show is not who is the Velveteen Mask, but that is a question that pops up, and my personal theory is it's Mr. Bland. It's the writer of the book that became the play. And I don't, part of my theory behind this is Mr. Bland saw that this play that's being put on is a travesty. It's poorly written, and it's not what he intended with his book. So he has decided to take on the mantle of the Velveteen Mask to stop the play from going on, so it doesn't ruin his name or ruin his character. That's my personal belief. Maybe it's that idea of the writer who loves his character too much to watch it be sullied by someone else's interpretation. This is my current working theory. Mr. Bland. I would put money on it. Okay, and that's all I have for you today. Thank you for joining me and talking about Encounter Party. The next episode of Encounter Party, episode 14, will be airing on February 6th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Freevee and Plex, specifically on the Dungeons & Dragons Adventures Network. In the meantime, why don't you go ahead and head to the comments here and tell me what you thought of last night's episode, or most importantly, who do you think the Velveteen Mask is? I'm very curious on if anybody else has any different theories. Also, if you have a different idea for how the story of the octopus ends, I'd love to hear what you think. I'm wildly curious on what we can come up with as to what happened to that octopus. Otherwise, don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe button, and, it really helps me out. And otherwise, I will be seeing you here in 1 week. All right, have a good one.